So hi everybody and welcome to episode 66 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions, chat and comments now drive the show. So please do let us know straight away your name and which city you're joining from around the world, because we have an eclectic panel representing multiple different continents, different cities, and we would love to hear from you and get everybody involved today. Okay. Also in the chat, we're going to post a link for you to vote up the questions that you'd most like answered from the panel. And of course, to add your own as well. And I can see colleagues are already in the chat introducing themselves. And if you could do the same thing, then that would be great. I think Hayley's covering the social chat for us today. So thank you for doing that, Hayley. We live stream, of course, Mondays at 8 and Fridays at 2 p.m., both UK time, to both YouTube and LinkedIn. And today we're going to be talking about how to develop an agile mindset. Now, what is one of those, I suppose? Well, I think for me, it's going to talk about thinking about leaving dogma behind and embracing the philosophy so eloquently captured within the Agile Manifesto. Increasingly, we're all asked to be much more agile, and today is all about doing just that. Okay, we've got a great panel, so let's jump straight in and meet them all. Farah Heba is a product owner and trainer who's passionate about knowledge sharing and getting out there and helping her clients to adopt and embrace new ways of thinking and working. She's worked across multiple industries and indeed multiple continents. So welcome, Farah. Great to see you again.
Hi, Nick. Hi, others. I'm looking really forward to answering the question today and really delighted to be here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And Farah, whereabouts are you joining us from today?
So today I'm joining from Algiers, Algeria.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Even my geography has kind of put you roughly on the map there, so thank you very much indeed. Malini Jayaganesh is a highly experienced business relationship manager, and her personal story was presented some years ago at a conference to great acclaim, and she entitled that presentation, Walk Fast and Walk Far. Malini has supported her team to achieve 6 Hall of Fame inductions in the field of business relationship management. So welcome back, Malini. Great to see you.
I'm delighted to be back on Level Up, and I'm looking forward to this wonderful conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. And Malini, where are you joining from today?
I'm joining you from a very cold Melbourne, Australia.
Ah, okay. As one, there's the northern hemisphere wanders vaguely towards the summertime. The southern hemisphere does the opposite, of course. So thank you very much indeed, and I hope you can keep cozy for the event itself. Etienne Shardlow is a senior consultant at Symphonise Consulting with a special focus on aligning IT and business strategies, getting those two communities to work closely together. He's steeped in helping his clients adopt agile ways of thinking and working. Welcome back, Etienne. Great to see you.
It's good to be back from a chilly Johannesburg. So you were right about the Southern Hemisphere. Winter hit hard.
All right, okay, and it's quite elevated, I think, Johannesburg in terms of altitude. So, yeah, when it's cold for sure. Absolutely. Dieter Strasser has dedicated his professional life to helping people and organisations ditch the dogma. In fact, he describes himself as almost a crusade against dogma in favour of a lean and more relaxed approach that really delivers. Welcome, Dieter. Great to have you on the panel today.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really appreciating that I'm being back again. Thank you. And I'm approaching from Austria.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. It's good to have Austria represented. Very beautiful country. Some fantastic commerce and industry, and of course, very, very beautiful environment as well. Paul Sutton joins us. He's the senior trainer and lead consultant for Project Results, who works from business case all of the way through to benefits realization to help his clients fully understand how to get the very best from their people, processes, and new ways of working. Welcome back, Paul.
Great to be back. Been here a few times, and so always a fantastic panel and great lineup this time, and some interesting questions. And I'm coming to you from Wellington, New Zealand.
Okay, excellent. So we have Wellington in New Zealand, we have Melbourne in Australia, Johannesburg in South Africa, we have Algiers in Algeria. That's an easy one to remember, isn't it, really? And we have Dieter, who's joining us from Austria in Europe, and myself, of course, from the Thames Valley. The show wouldn't be complete without a question master, and today I'm delighted to welcome back Suchitra. Suchitra, how are you, and whereabouts are you joining from?
Hi, Nick. Hi, everyone. Great to be back again on Monday for Level Up. So I'm joining in from a very pleasant Bangalore, I must say.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And brilliant to see everybody in the chat from Italy, from Greece. We've got people from South Africa, from Canberra in Australia. Hopefully you've digested your democracy sausages. I learnt all about democracy sausages over the weekend as the Australians went to vote. I thought, what a fantastic idea that is. It's something that we need to introduce in the UK, except here it would be cake. It would be democracy cake. That would get us up and out into the voting pools. All right, very good. So on that note, let's get on with a democratic show. All of the questions, of course, come from you, the audience. You are our producers. So Suchitra, if we can, may we have our first question, please?
Question from Elias. What should an organization do if the expected results from a shift to an agile mindset are not met?
Well, this is quite interesting, isn't it, to kind of start with the struggle, because it can be a bit of a struggle. Farah, start us off on this, and then Dieter.
Yeah. So first, I would say that you need to question the objectives and the targets that you put behind the shift to agile mindset journey. Did you target the right objectives? Did you set realistic targets? Then your teams might try to identify the root cause and to get, let's say, field insights by organizing interviews, getting to know what people think, observe, make surveys or whatsoever. So maybe you did not take time for the cultural shift and to support people. So for me, the first thing to do is really to go to the field, to check what happens, what's behind the people's mind, and get to know the root causes rather than just reviewing the targets and putting some new targets on the table.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Farah. Dieter?
I think more than 98% of the customers who are asked what what is behind Agile doesn't know what Agile really delivers. And Agile really means they're so superficial. And at first, I think the results should be clear from the start on. And to be clear is something else like using OBM to make the desired behavior is clear together with the impacted people, build an performance feedback, perfectly build it from the affected people and do it together, listen and be really clear and do what you say at the same level in all levels of the hierarchy. Ask the employees, speak with the employees, be really seriously interested to achieve together the really great goals.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dieter. We may come back to OBM in a little while, if we may. But before we do that, Etienne, your thoughts, please.
I think a shift to agile is always going to be difficult for a lot of people. It took me a long time to get my head around the kind of agile mindset. I tend to be a project manager that's a bit of a control freak, and this idea of letting go and empowering your team. And I think one of the biggest challenges, especially when we're talking results, is does the team know what the results are that are expected? And I think with Agile, we need to keep an eye on the short-term achievements, but we need to keep an eye on the big picture goal as well. And that's always the difficulty with Agile, is making sure that we've always got our eye on that long-term goal, keeping our eye on that prize.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Etienne. Now, Dieter mentioned a term, which is familiar to some of us, but might not be familiar to everybody. So OBM, Dieter, if we may, let's just expand on that a little for people. What is OBM, and why should people start to think about using it?
OBM is the acronym for Organizational Behavior and Management. And one of the advantages of OBM is to make the desired behaviors really clear and reinforce what you want to have and see more often. And it's so totally concrete and helpful extension for every leader, maybe as a leader at the highest level of the hierarchy, and as well as a team leader or as a primus inter pares. It helps everyone. It helps everyone to make it clear what you want and what you want to see again. And it's
Thank you
based
very
in the
much indeed.
Netherlands, and it's 45 years old. Huh?
Okay, all right. Why is everything still younger than me? That's my problem. That's my problem. Every now and again, I want to, please, can we find something that's younger than me? All right, okay, very good. Organizational behavioral management, or behavior management, I apologize. So it's a really interesting technique, actually. So well worth looking up. I'm going to ask our colleague Hayley to post a link to OBM in the chat, and I can see that she's done that now. So thank you very much, Hayley. For those of you watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube, please do click on that, or then you can bookmark it and have a look later on. Great advice, panel, and a really interesting question to get us going. Suchitra, I think we'll move on now, please. May we take our next question?
Question from Leila. What is an agile mindset, and to what extent is it different from the usual project management mindset?
Okay, there's lots of smiling going on the panel. What is an agile mindset? I think it's kind of tricky to if you like, nail down. You know, it's a little like trying to pick up mercury, a blob of mercury from a glass table. We'll chase it around a little bit, you know, before you discover that there's a different way of approaching it. Etienne, start us off, please, and then we'll hear from Malini.
I think a good way to introduce yourself to what an agile mindset is, because as you say, it's a really complex idea, is to have a look at the Agile Manifesto and have a look at the Agile principles. And they talk there about, you know, being adaptive, being responsive to change, putting the customer first, having the right team mindset, an empowered team, you know, and there's so many aspects of agile and agility. But I think the Agile principles is a good place to start.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Farah?
Yeah, I would say really, let's say, aligned with what Etienne has just said. In fact, behind the agile mindset concept, you might have a lot of different definitions. But if we need to tackle something and to give, let's say, an overview or summary of what it is, I would say that it's a kind of, let's say, a set of attitudes, of beliefs that would support your team to work in an environment that's driven by flexibility and all the agile principles that you may see in the Agile Manifesto. So for me, it's a certain cast of mind that would emphasize some things over others, like transparency, collaboration, self-management, or just being customer-centric. And if we tend to speak about the next part of the question, so comparing it to a usual project management mindset, I would say that it's not just coordinating people and tasks, it's rather putting people at the center of attention.
Okay, interesting visualization. And yeah, thank you very much indeed, Farah. So Paul?
Yeah, I think it's just to add what Farah said, it's being open about both the journey and the destination, and so sort of traditional project management sort of kind of rigid and, you know, milestones, whereas how an agile journey is going to go is not specifically determined, and there might be some objective changes part way through the process as well. So it's actually being flexible to actually meet the customer needs, about being customer centric, but also the team being flexible and focusing on the end game, which may change as things move on.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Paul. Dieter?
being realistic, I experienced a lot of large customers which lives project management as a fighting in battles out of silos and around scarce resource and not seeing the greater goods. And hopefully the question that don't think about such, this is usual project management. Start really collaboration, start really listening in and taking out the one term of Etienne, being empowered, being really empowered means don't acting in micromanagement, don't comment. And that's a really, really great difference to bridge the gap, and not only for one project, always again, a long running game.
That's interesting. I'm going to come back to that thinking about the detail and avoiding that kind of micromanagement in a few moments. Malini, your thoughts, please.
I think when we're talking about what is an agile mindset, it's worth looking at what is not an agile mindset. And I say this because there's a tendency for people to misinterpret what agile is, and they sort of reduce it to rituals and processes. Whereas when we talk about an agile mindset, it's about what happens within us. I think Farah was spot on with the mention of attitudes and beliefs and values that underpin how we actually approach our work.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed, Malini. I think one of the things that's really tricky with an agile mindset is we are all creatures of habit. And so we tend to get drawn back, to use a space analogy. Our behaviors in the past are rather like the black hole. And even though you try to launch yourself away from it somehow or another, that gravitational pull drags you back down again. So if you can, give yourself that escape velocity, get that help from object bigger than yourself in the galaxy to pull you away from your past behaviors and launch you towards the behaviors that you're looking for in the future. So there's definitely benefit from that. Brilliant to see the diversity of all of the different places that we have around the world. So thank you for joining from Nigeria, from Dublin. We've got folks in from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. We've got Tunisia online today. Great to see you as a community joining us. Thank you so much. And some great commentary already in the chat. Now, if you're watching us online, you could put your question directly to the panel. Type it into the chat and we will pick it up from there and we will bring it in for you into Slido. Or you can go and visit slido.com event 565466 and register yourself, and then you can join us every week. All right, very good. Suchitra, let's move on, please, if we can, and take our next question.
We have a live question from Kader Medri. What is the best way to inculcate an agile mindset to an IT team who are not used to agile?
Quite interesting. I think in many ways, because agile began its life within the IT community, it's rare now to find people who are not at least aware of it to some extent, but there may be some reasons as to why it's a little bit more tricky to adopt. Malini, your thoughts, please, and then Farah.
I find it best to actually take an agile approach to introducing an agile mindset or to cultivating an agile mindset. So I would say, Khadim, encourage the team to learn by doing. Yes, you can go on a course and you can learn some of the formal methodologies and structures, but you never really make that shift to becoming agile unless you're actually on that path. So get started without further delay.
What a great idea. Why not use it right from the very beginning? Farah, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, totally agree with what Malini had just said. I would say experiment, define your North Star. What's your vision? What's your strategy? And explain it to the team so that people do not get confused on what are the behaviors that are expected or what should change. And also involve the team into defining the plan. So what should be experimented? How do we get feedback, etc. Getting their hands into the topic and into the definition of the strategy and the experimentation would help them to be, let's say, more committed to the change and more committed to the experiments.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Paul, and then Dieter.
Fantastic comments from my colleagues. I think, there's that old role of the Scrum Master, and this person is coaching the team. If you've got some of the IT people as part of the team and they're being coached and, servant leadership and all that sort of stuff, it's going to rub off. So actually some doing is a great idea. Then you can kind of do it in a small team of 8 or so, and feedback loops at the higher level of the organisation about what's working, what's not working.
Thank you very much. Dieter?
Usually IT has often a lot of pain. It's a cost factor, and the value of the IT department is often underestimated, and I'm waiting if the pain is high enough. And then we talk about what they really want to achieve, how to demonstrate their value, how to link their work to the goals of the company, and then we start with all the recommended practices from my colleagues.
It's a good point. That provides the kind of the burning platform, if you like, the compelling event. A couple of other thoughts for you as well is that people learn in different ways. And so around about 65% of the population are visual or auditory learners. So helping them with job aids that help them understand processes and procedures and so on in a visual and an auditory way are going to be super important. There are other forms of learning as well, and you might like to look at there's a website to do with learning styles. And from memory, I think the 4-letter acronym is VARK, VARK, visual, auditory. The R stands for reading and writing, is sometimes also called tactile learning. And then the K is kinesthetic, or learning by doing. Okay, so we'll try and find a link for you to where you can read a little bit more about learning styles as well, if that might be of some help to you, Kadam. So thank you very much for your question. Suchitra, let's move on. Take our next question, please.
We have another live question from Mohammed. Cultural background plays an important role in an agile mindset. What are your thoughts on this?
Cultural background really does play an important role in almost everything that we do. So I think the whole panel is going to join in with this one. Malini, start us off, please, and then we'll hear from Etienne next.
Well, Mohammed, you've asked a really interesting question, and I think we can spend a whole hour or more or longer talking on this. But I'll just say one thing. The research in cross-cultural leadership and management suggests that people from different cultural backgrounds have differing attitudes to uncertainty, right, and how they respond to it. And I think that's actually really critical, because with the agile way of working, you actually have to have a great degree of comfort with uncertainty, and you must be willing to sort of put work around certainty for a shorter period of time, with a view to actually creating more clarity as you go along. And I think that definitely, in my experience, is something that I've actually seen, play out, in the workplace in different countries.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Malini. Etienne, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Farah.
Yeah. For me, agile is a mindset, but it's also a culture. And it's a cultural change that needs to happen in the organization. And one of the challenges we face is that we don't have the detailed planning up front. And so there is that uncertainty, and that requires trust. And so a lot of the agile principles of trust, transparency, honesty, openness, those are the things that we need to develop in our corporate culture. And often that is lacking, and that is in all environments, all business environments. We need to build this culture of trust within the organization in order to make agile work.
Thank you, Etienne. Farah, and then Paul.
On my side, I will look at it on another perspective. I had the opportunity to work with a lot of multicultural teams. And what I see is that, let's say everyone has their own translation of the Agile mindset codes and practices that would help, for example, people embrace it. So you'll always speak about collaboration, but collaboration might be different when it comes to practices in Europe or Africa or Americas. You'll always speak of self-management, but the same. It might be different when it comes to practices from a country to another or from a specific culture to another. So one of the things, according to me, to keep in mind is to refer to the definition of each one of the terms that make the Agile mindset. What do people think of collaboration? What does it mean in practice? Same for trust, same of self-management, of customer centricity. So for me, the tip would be to get back to the definition for each one of the people that are in the team, especially if it's a multicultural team and that concept does not mean the same for each one of the people.
It's a really important part, that, because so many of us now work, across different sites, and culture can vary by site. Culture. I live in a very, very small country. Quite often, actually, there's big differences in the way that people prefer to think and act and behave in one part of my country to even to another. Never mind, the large cultural shifts that you can get, across continents and so on. So really good insight there, Farah. Thank you, Paul. Your thoughts, please.
I'll give a slightly different spin, and that some of my experience has been that specific kind of personal cultures sometimes don't make so much of a difference as organizational cultures. And so if you are in an organization which has a very strong command and control culture, and that's well embedded, it's quite difficult to be agile because people feel really low levels of empowerment. That takes a long time to unpick. That can happen with, specific organizations within countries due to evolution or the type of industry that they follow. They're going to be more difficult to be truly agile.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So pretty much everybody on the panel, coming up with their thoughts on how the manifesto itself may be interpreted, and the practice, the way in which guidance and the mindset may exhibit themselves in the presentation layer may vary depending on your cultural background. So fantastically insightful question. So thank you so much, Mohammed. You've really got the panel thinking, and that's a good thing to see. I can almost see the little cogs whirring around, in everybody's mind. So excellent question, Mohammed. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Suchitra, let's move on. We'll take our next question, if we may.
We have another live question from Ifogale Efajumu. Can an agile mindset be applied in any environment? For example, in construction?
All right. So this is often something that comes up from people. They often list things like, can you build a bridge in an agile way? This kind of thing, or indeed in life sciences. Dieter, start us off with your thoughts, please.
I just now I have a lot of customers in the construction area, and they are really living to gain more flow through their construction exercises and their needs. And in this case, yes, behind the question is often the discussion also of military from centralization to decentralization, and it's a long-term history in this question. And what's based on this is how much empowerment is really successful and how it works really. And in sum, it's a great yes to the question. Any environment.
Thank you very much, Etienne. Then Farah.
Yeah, I think agile methods and an agile mindset can be used in any environment and in any project. I always say that agile is something that is kind of on a continuum between this kind of traditional waterfall approach with lots of planning up front and an agile approach with very little detail planning up front. But so I always say it's on a continuum. We need to decide how agile we want to be. But I think agile mindsets and methods can be used everywhere.
Very much, Farah.
Yeah, it can be used everywhere, but at the same time, there might be some challenges depending on the sector, depending on the industry. When I speak about challenges, I mean, for example, contexts where there are a lot of hierarchical levels, where there is no trust environments, no available clients, etc. So yes, the mindset basics and the codes behind Agile might be applicable everywhere, but there are some environments in which it will take more time or be more challenging for the team to, let's say, make these principles become the basics for the company.
Thank you. Malini and then Paul.
I agree with what my colleagues have just said, and I think when you're trying to apply agile mindset to to an environment which might not seem conducive at the outset, remember that by way of introducing that change over time, you can actually create a change in the environment itself, so that it actually becomes more suitable for agile ways of working.
Very much indeed. And Paul.
Yes, so the agile bridge building engineer, I would say definitely not. Standard process, which is tried and true, which makes sure the bridge doesn't fall down. You'd be pretty brave to do that. But maybe the design process, the way you ran it, you could. I think there are some areas where traditional approaches are best. I think with Agile, you pick the areas which are going to return the best benefits.
Thank you very much indeed, and I think that's really where we're starting to get to, isn't it? It's about, if you think about, major infrastructure, bridges, pipelines, power generation, healthcare provision, and so on. A modern approach would be a blend for the whole variety of different teams working in different ways and different modalities in order to be able to deliver the kind of outcomes for citizens that politicians are looking for and that taxpayers are expecting now from large infrastructure projects. So I think it's quite interesting, and the kind of I appreciate fully, by the way, how these stories are used in teaching to be able to illustrate and to be able to allow people to draw comparative conclusions. At the same time, the blended model is generally the direction of travel for everybody. So if you're unfamiliar with one, wherever you are on the spectrum of agility, it's a really good idea to read sideways and start to become more familiar with the whole spectrum of approaches. Very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. That's excellent. So, Suchitra, let's move on and we'll take our next question, please. It was a brilliant question, that one. So thank you very much.
Question from Nick. As a small organization, how would I know that my teams really need to develop an agile mindset? Is it always a silver bullet?
Etienne, your thoughts, please.
So I think there is value from an agile mindset in every environment. Is it always a silver bullet? Probably not. I think there's a lot to be gained from being more agile, but agile isn't going to solve all of your problems. There's a lot in agile that will help, but it's not going to solve everything.
Thank you, Dieter.
Maybe silver bullets only helps against werewolves, but not in a business. And so I'm thinking silver bullets doesn't really exist. My recommendation is let the team itself decide which of the topics or practices will help them, discuss it, coach them, and they should decide how to go on.
I think that's really good. Yeah, they're very rare. Werewolves are very rare. So are silver bullets. Excellent. Thank you. Farah?
I think that the question is really interesting because sometimes I see on practice that small organization might tend to move to agile or gain or try to figure out how to adapt agile methods and approaches based on trend because they see all the bigger companies do so, etc. So my advice would be first to assess what would be needed, if it's really appropriate for your situation, for your sectors. There would be times when a more traditional approach will work best or be just sufficient. And as Etienne had just said, there is good in all the agile mindset principles and approaches and so on. So you would need to meet your teams to ask or to assess your current culture and to point out what components of the agile mindset can help you on a day-to-day basis, what levers are already there as well, and on which you can, let's say, work and focus yourself. So 2 aspects of my answer. First one is be careful. It does not need to be a trend mode or something that you need to follow just because you see that other smaller companies or bigger companies are going into it. And second, make your team participate and make them involved into defining what would be interesting for you and what would matter as a day-to-day basis.
All right, really, excuse me, really, really good advice there. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Some great thinking. Let's move on. Suchitra, if we can, I can see that the questions are kind of stacking up. And if you're watching online and would like to put your question directly to the panel, then please just type it in and we'll pick it up and move it across.
We have another live question from Ganesh. With a services company, especially where only a partial work or product is in scope, how do we embrace an agile mindset? More so when profitability and margins drive everything.
So services is a really interesting use case for organizational agility. Paul, start us off with your thoughts and then we'll hear from Dieter.
Well, I think, that whole agile principle of, fixing time and cost and getting stuff out the door is actually really good for services, get the product out the door. So I think that agile mindset can be really useful. Focus on getting something to the customer and prioritize.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dieter.
Especially when you are gaining profitability and the high margins, you should try agility. But agility isn't a short-term experience, it's more a long-term run. But maybe you need additional to your screwdrivers, a hammer, and you can extend your toolbox. And especially for services, there are really, really great benefits ahead.
Thank you very much indeed, Etienne.
Yeah, I think one of the big drivers in Agile is delivering value early, and as Paul said, get the service out of the door, introduce something, and you can always change it, fix it, make it better over time, but get something out to the customer early. And this whole idea of delivering value early, I also like to use Agile with the 80-20 principle. So figure out what 20% of the service, what 20% of the work is going to add the most value, and get started with that.
It's a really good point. As services professionals, we don't always know the answer, but we do generally have a lot of experience in asking better questions. And we have the advantage of not being part of the host organization. And so by default, we're able to look at things with a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh view, if you like. So the one thing that I would say is that the panel are absolutely right. Get going, deliver value early, but also consider how you present that journey to the client. I think early in consultants' careers, people imagine that they need to know all the answers. Services people rarely know all the answers, but services people generally are great facilitators. They're great at breaking down big problems into smaller little steps and working with the client to arrive at new answers to an old problem. So that's the way to do it, I think, and that kind of agility really does show up and clients really appreciate it and they come with you on your journey so much more easily as a result. So profitability and margins, commercials will always follow great work. Okay. If you're really good at what you do, you'll be invited back. That's where your profitability comes in. Sometimes you need to invest. Sometimes you will reap the reward, but generally great work means better rates and better profitability over time. Thank you very much indeed, panel. And a great question, Ganesh. So thank you very much indeed. And I can see all of the questions that we've got in the chat now, which is really great. So I think we need to move on a little bit. Suchitra, let's take our next question, please.
Question from Linda. Are lean mindset and agile mindset complementary?
Etienne.
I would definitely say yes. A lot of the agile ideas come from that lean mindset. They come from that lean manufacturing environment. So originally there was lean, then there was lean for IT, and a lot of the agile ideas came out of lean thinking. A lot, agile, DevOps, lean, all of these things are very intertwined. So the answer for me is a very definite yes.
Farah?
Totally agree. For me, it's also definitely yes. Lean and agile principles are complementary to each other. On one hand, you have lean that is about understanding the voice of the customer, the voice of the business, in order to create that real value that you're looking for, while eliminating waste. And waste might be just waiting times or poor quality developments or whatsoever. And on the other hand, you have the agile that's also customer centric and that wants to help to build those products incrementally through iterative cycles. So I would call it the lean agile mindset would leverage the principles of producing and adapting your products via short iterations, adapting to change, and having behind your mind this idea of optimizing your work, optimizing your process and the way of working. So definitely both are complementary, and you can find a lot of practices that can be put in place while looking into lean management more deeply.
Thank you. And Dieter?
Yes, I want to add that you shouldn't always stick on characters only. Look behind, choose what is appropriate in this moment, turn off always your common sense, work together and see what happened. And if you fail, then fail fast. Do it, and don't stick on the term of mindset.
Thank you very much indeed, panel. Very good. Suchitra, let's move on, please. We'll take our next question, if we may.
Question from Nick. Can you share examples of workshops that would help teams to embrace an agile mindset?
So how have you worked with your clients in order to be able to help them adopt this way of thinking and embed this way of thinking into their approach? Dieter?
I offered often in my trainings different workshops for flow simulations. And at first, the people should go away without any collaboration. And the second round is together working with your colleagues, and the people have enormously insights always again and experience immediately the difference.
Interesting, thank you. So from the kind of the cold winter of lack of collaboration through to the warm spring of where it all goes splendidly. Very good approach. Thank you very much. Farah, then Malini.
In fact, what you can do is like organize a one-day sprint or a design sprint or a hackathon or something that will help people experience new ways of working. It generally uses design thinking to reshape the way people behave. And it works, since if you want to inspire more agile ways of working, don't just tell people about it, help them to live it and to experience it. So some tips, if you want to do so, just make sure to have a diversified set of participants, people coming from different perspectives, different departments, and try to explain the what, the who, the when, and the most important, the why you're going to shift into that new mindset. So it can be a one day off, it can be on multiple days, but it will help your team experience what you mean by agile mindset.
Excellent, thank you. Malini?
A type of workshop that I like to facilitate, which I find delivers immense benefits, is actually based on play. because it gets people comfortable with the idea of maybe not getting things right. So get used to the idea of failing fast. What do we, being able to move on from that, also opens up that sense of comfort with each other, right? And being able to be more transparent and collaborate better. So agile, shifting to an agile mindset is a very serious thing, but we have to learn not to take ourselves too seriously, and sort of engage in ways that might help others to bring different perspectives or engage different parts of their brain. And play-based workshops are excellent for that sort of thing.
Completely agree, Malini. Fantastic advice there. Paul, your thoughts?
Drop the old post-it note up. Yeah, there we are. That right side. Yep. So, this is a tried and true technique. Everybody write your own ideas down and then contribute to the group. This gets around the people that sit quietly in the corner. Also helps moderate those people that dominate. And actually now we all contribute, and that's really important. Now we're all contributing. We're thinking about everyone has value, and that value is added to the group. We keep doing that, and we keep asking people to contribute and come up with their ideas and move forward in this agile way of thinking, rather than one person, the whole team.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And getting people, developing our facilitation skills. I think facilitation skills are really at the heart of this, because you need to create an environment in which others feel comfortable to be able to participate. And if you're online, explore collaboration tools. There are some really good electronic post-it note equivalents now that you can use if you're using things like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or one of those platforms, and your team is, very much kind of spread out around the world, so you can't be physically present. Then use those kinds of techniques. They still work. They work really well, actually, and it all comes down to your ability as a facilitator to create that space in which people feel comfortable. To Marlini's point, creativity really needs encouragement, it needs space, it needs you to set out that feeling for everybody, all right, of safety. This is a safe place in which you can, contribute. Excellent, really good advice. Thank you so much, and what a lovely question. It's not from me, by the way. It must be a different Nick. So thank you very much for adding your questions into Slido. Suchitra, let's move on.
We have a live question from Omar Abbas. In Prince 2, at every stage, a gateway review is held and a decision to change is taken. So why agile? Early value delivery can be planned over the stages.
Indeed, and this is one of those dichotomies in life, isn't it? And I think it's the social media that has polarized people's opinion, here, that it's one or the other, that you have to do this or that. And if I was to sum up Prince 2, my understanding of it, the very English phrase, it depends. Comes in a great deal, because you need to think, all right? It depends, kind of thing. You need to really think about what you're doing, and you as a project manager can adapt your method to suit your situation. That is the whole point about being a project manager, about being a professional, is looking at the problem and adapting whatever techniques you are using. Paul, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's important to think hard about what you're trying to do. What are you trying to do with those gates? You're trying to have a point where you see how things are going. Well, these definitions of done and workable products, that's all part of the agile mindset. So we need to kind of overlay it. And we need to sort of balance rigidity versus, complete chaos. So, back to you, Nick. It all depends.
I completely agree with that. One thought that for you, Omar, is it Omar? Yeah. Would be to have a look at practiceframework.org. Okay. Now there, Adrian Dooley, who is the lead author of Practice Framework, his view is that complexity, risk, they're a continuum. and they start with simple and straightforward, and they end with highly uncertain, highly complex, with a high degree of risk, whether it be reputational or whether it be credit or whether it be whatever kind of risk that your project is going to hit. Okay, so do have a look at practiceframework.org. There's a really good set of resources. It's free, by the way. It's a really good set of resources for folks who are trying to navigate their way through this kind of continuum and select out the elements which are most likely, not guaranteed, but most likely to help you deliver value to your particular client. And Farah, I know that you've been waiting as well. What would you like to add to the discussion?
Yeah, just a small thing, which is that agility is also the ability to react as soon as possible. So you do not need to wait for a specific date or for a specific milestone to make the decision in regard to a change to be done on the product or on your teams. So agility gives also that added value, I think, to the teams. The possibility to make a decision at the right time, not waiting for a specific moment, not waiting for a specific committee or a specific milestone. So for me, it's also something that would differentiate what we might find into Prince2, PMP, whatsoever in the Agile methods.
It's a really good point, that, isn't it? Because timing is everything sometimes. Thank you very much indeed. Really good point there. Thank you so much. And a brilliant question, Omar, and a very real one for so many people around the world. So it's a great question to ask. And thank you for joining in with us today. Suchitra, let's move on. We've got time for one last question if we really hurry, panel.
Okay, we have a last question from Herbert Kugler. Which other mindsets matter in the modern VUCA world?
Okay, scary levels of uncertainty and so on. What other mindset should we try and embrace? Malini, help us out. You're always so philosophical at these moments, giving people confidence around the world.
Well, the growth mindset is one that sort of sprang to mind immediately when I heard this question. I think irrespective of what type of organization we work in, which part of the world, etc., I think for us to have that ability to look at ourselves and then know that we can, what we are today, the person that we are today, is not the sum total of everything that we have to offer, but that we can actually evolve and grow and adapt to whatever comes our way. I think that's actually powerful, not just in the context of agility at the workplace, but generally to build resilience or to cultivate resilience in life itself.
Thank you very much, Farah. Then Etienne.
There are two other mindsets that we have been speaking about earlier in the discussion and might be really interesting in what you call the VUCA-world. So with a lot of volatility, uncertainty, etc. It's first the lean mindset that we have been speaking about just a bit earlier. So having the continuous experimentation, create value with fewer resources and optimized way of working. Second one that we have been speaking about, really a small part of the discussion, is the design thinking mindset. So to learn how to explore, how to solve problems, to define the right problems rather than just jump into the solution. So for me, the both and adding also the growth mindset that Malini is speaking about is a really good combination to start with and to develop.
Thank you very much, Etienne.
Yeah, just touching on what Farah and Malini have said, lean thinking, lean ideas, design thinking, systems thinking, all of these things help us in dealing with this world that is changing so rapidly and is so complex. And agile, lean, all of these mindsets help. But I think the one thing we need to focus on is relationship building. I think it's really important. If you look at lean, if you look at agile, everything revolves around the relationships in the team and the relationship with the customer. And I think those, that really is where we need to focus.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Paul and then Dieter.
I think the uncertainty side of things is there, across a variety of spectrums, including agile and program management. Also has the concept of, we know sort of where we're going, but not how we're going to get there. So this is common. Humans, we're good at working out complex problems when we don't actually know the solution to it. So, Agile's going to help you.
Thank you very much. Dieter, final thoughts?
Yes, of course, there's also a lean startup thinking and a new work thinking, but I think there's more a tendency way back from the tools more to the human centered, and there's a human leadership, and the human is in the focus and in the center, and the human isn't a resource, the human is a living being, and it's more interesting to focus on the human.
Excellent point. Thank you so much, Dieter. And thank you very much for the question. And panel, thank you so much for your insight. So let's hear now your kind of closing remarks on today's event. Paul, if I may, I'll come to you first and then Etienne.
Me first, is it?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. I think this is a learning journey, and so try stuff out, fail, keep trying, learning, do research, learn from others, hear from others, learn as a team.
Excellent. Thank you, Etienne. And then Farah?
For me, I think agility is all about responsiveness and responding. And you can't respond quickly if you don't know where you're going. And so keep an eye on the goal and make sure that you manage those relationships, you manage that communication with your customer, with your team, and little by little build this agile ability, build this agility into your organization.
Thanks, Etienne. Farah and then Dieter.
So first of all, thanks all for your thoughts, and for the viewers also for the amazing and challenging questions. It was really, really good. And last word for me, I would say that in the same way that music relies on harmony and rhythm, well, teams might need a strong underlying system to achieve goals and strategy and to create value for people and to make these clients as the center of what they provide. And the Agile Mindset can be that way of dealing with people, with products, and with all what we will be requested to manage your strategy.
Thank you very much indeed, Dieter, and then Malini.
Think what we are really doing here. We are living in a mindset of respect, and also if we have some disagreements, we can respect the opinion of others, and we live on, and we can bring in all other different views, and that's what really matters.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Malini.
Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. I've really enjoyed hearing from everyone today, and what wonderful, thought-provoking questions we've seen come through the show. In closing, what I would like to just emphasize is that agility is, relies very much, or it's built on the principle of distributed leadership. So to everyone who is listening, irrespective of where you are in your organization's hierarchy, it's absolutely within your power to influence the agile mindset of your organization and to evolve that culture. So just go for it.
Thank you so much, Malini. Great advice. Suchitra, your closing thoughts on today.
I love today's show, Nick, and I think Malini summed it up very beautifully. Right. And thank you to our live audience as well for sending in some amazing questions.
Thank you so much. And yeah, absolutely concur with all of that. Thank you so much to our producers online. You've done a great job. And thank you very much, panel. Really, really, really insightful today. And I've got plenty to think about as later on today I start to take a little break So thank you, everybody, for your questions. Now, over on our website, you can, of course, search for answers to all of the questions that have been asked on Level Up. It's over 950 now. A comprehensive free resource connecting you with over 130 experts from all around the world. Don't forget that you can also listen to the audio version of the show on your preferred podcasting platform. This Friday, the 27th, Stefan Brendel is sitting in for me. He's going to be in the chair helping you build a culture of relationship management in your business. On Monday, the 30th, I'll be back and we'll be building on that and exploring how rapport is the foundation for developing our inner sales talents, because we all have them. Subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.